Check Complete, a referee podcast, is an educational resource for referees by referees, designed to connect and develop soccer officials of all ages and skill levels to better serve the game both on and off the field. The Check Complete podcast is back with episode numero 21. When we are recording this, we are a mere 5 days away from Christmas. Yeah. I don't know when people will be listening to this, sometime into the future when we're driving around in cars in the air or whatever, but right now I say ho ho ho, and I'm not talking about the three people behind the camera. Oh, humor. Anyway, yes, happy holidays to everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Check Complete podcast. We are excited to have another wonderful episode, and if you think it's anything other than that, go scream it to a pillow or something. I don't want to hear about it. So we have our co-host today is Logan Clark. We'll get to him in just a moment. We have another episode of Coffee with Christina where we talk about error correction and recovery. So for referees that are mere mortals that make mistakes, I don't know what that's all about, but she and I talk through that for those that when we have something in our game that doesn't go as we had hoped, an error is made, what can we do to recover from that and to continue on a high level of performance? And then we are very excited to have, not that we're not excited to have you here, Logan, we are, but we're very excited to have the man behind Inside Video Review, the Greg Barkey, who's going to be joining us via Zoom here shortly. Super excited to have that conversation with him, especially coming off of the World Cup, where we saw more intervention, or at least more usage of technology than we have ever seen before, as far as the semi-automated offside. So we'll talk about some of that. We'll talk about the efficiency of VAR in the MLS, where they're at with that process, as well as hear some of Greg's story and have what I'm sure will be a rich, luscious conversation. So good times ahead. But Logan, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. Logan, you are how old?
I am 20 now.
He's 20. He's a mere youngster, a whippersnapper, if you will, spring chicken of sorts. So how did you get started refereeing?
So I actually started before most. So I started when I was 10 years old.
10?
10. So I beat the age requirement of 12 at the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
My fourth grade teacher's husband, you guys may know Lone Elm Soccer Complex out in Olathe. The Rush Rec League is where I started.
Okay.
So I actually got certified when I was 10. LJ and Ellen were my instructors at MNU. So I started there, and from 10 to 12, I was doing rec leagues like U6, U9s.
There you go. So LJ and Ellen are two legendary instructors. We'll call them that. Yeah. And the MNU that he aforementioned is Mid-America Nazarene University, a local college where really, truly legends graduate from.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So
especially ones that wear their Santa suits to sports games.
That's correct. Yeah. We won't talk about that. Anyway, so you went to that class at the ripe young age of 10.
Of 10.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you started with the Rush Recreation program.
So I was there 10 to 12, pretty much every weekend doing just rec league and then tournaments, and then moved over to Heartland when I became of age of 12, and then worked my way up through Heartland. Then the goal was State Cup at the time. I made it to State Cup, and then kind of everything that followed.
So when you started, let's go back slightly. When you started with the Rush program, was like a one-man?
Yep, one man.
Right? Like little 5v5 kind of things? Okay. And then you made it to the big leagues.
The big leagues of Heartland.
Right? The Heartland Soccer Association, the largest youth league in the country here in Kansas City. Now that's expanded over 4 complexes, and they use other complexes as well as needed for tournaments and things like that. So massive, massive group. So you started doing Heartland games, and then you did. So then from there you started getting seen and given opportunities for state. So what was that like? That getting what was the key to success to get into those channels?
So obviously I started on the smaller fields, the 7v7, 9v9 games, and then the mentor program that we have in Kansas actually helped a lot. I remember Lauren Saunders actually was mentoring one of my games, and put in a good word for me.
Yeah.
And that kind of moved me up onto like the 11v11 fields.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where I had more mentoring opportunities, more opportunities to be seen, that then brought me in the opportunity to, move up into the state cup kind of aspect of things, where then I was seen to be picked for regionals and, other events.
Right. Well, and I ask you, and I dig into that a little bit because I know there's people not just in our state, but there's people across the country that are wondering, how do I level up? How do I get into that next level? What do I need to do? Who do I need to see? Who needs to see me? All that kind of stuff. So what I'm hearing and what you're saying is some more senior level officials saw you.
Yep.
The mentoring piece was huge. So for states that already have a mentoring program in place, that's a huge channel for not only just individual growth, but the opportunities that can be provided to those who are working hard, and growth comes out of that.
Yep.
So were there any other factors for you? I mean, a lot of it's probably just your own tenacity,
Yeah.
right?
So it started just kind of like most at a young age. It started out as a job.
Right.
But then once I think I was 13 or 14, kind of my first or in between first and second year out at Heartland, I kind of got that, it kind of hit me, and I fell in love with what it was doing. And it became more than just a job, and it was like a passion to me. And so, and then having the opportunities that others would give me and the feedback they gave me to improve it, and then working on that and improving, it felt good to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You may have already answered this, and I had zoned out, because I'll be honest, there was a moment when you were talking there where I completely zoned out. But I listened to most of it. So was there a moment that the switch was flipped for you? Was there something that was like, hey, this isn't just a job. I actually really like this.
Yeah, it was between my first and second year out at Heartland. I don't know what caused it to happen. I don't know why it happened. I can't remember that far back, but I know that's when it happened. And
something did. Yeah.
And I'm glad it did.
Well, I mean, we are too. We're in our state. We're extremely proud of you, and there's a blindingly bright future for you. But it's interesting because we've had those conversations. A lot of us in Kansas and beyond of just trying to figure out what is that, and it feels a bit like catching lightning in a bottle, right? It's extremely hard. It's difficult to know what's going to push which buttons on which person.
Right. It's different for everybody.
It is, and so, but it's interesting when you have these conversations to go, what was it for you? That way we know we can maybe bark up that tree with others to see if we can get that to be a moment where a light switch flips on of sorts. So you've already talked about our second question a little bit about your referee journey. What have been some of the hallmark characteristics for you? The standout moments, maybe that's good, bad, and ugly. I don't know.
Yeah. It's taken me places that I never thought I would ever go.
Yeah.
Like when I was 16, I went and did an ECNL event out in South Carolina. Just me. Didn't have anybody go with me. So, and then all the regional events, going to St. Louis, Ohio, Indiana.
The really exotic places.
The really exotic places in the world.
Yeah.
Lots to see there.
Yeah.
Cincinnati Zoo is great. Highly recommend.
Hey. Yes.
No, but
Harambe. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
But doing things, working my way up, starting with, even if it's minor things like the Alphabet Soup League we have here, so like ECNL, NPL, stuff like that. But then going into, kind of like the USL2s, the NPSL.
Mm-hmm.
So recently I had the opportunity to do the Des Moines Menace in their conference semifinal, which was by far the highest level game I've ever done. And so it was something that I will likely remember for the rest of my life.
Right.
And it's thanks to reffing that I have those memories and the bonds that, I've created with people along the way, like you and the three gentlemen behind the camera. So
yeah, right. So bonds with me is important.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, good. I wanted to make sure we picked that up on tape about how important I am. But no, very good. It does provides you a lot of opportunities, a lot of friendships. Opportunities to travel, to connect with people. I mean, you've been able to build relationships. I know this is calling back 2 episodes when we talked with Paul Scott. You were able to participate in the program last spring at Dallas Cup.
Correct.
So you were part of the NPSL. What did they call that?
It was an NPSL Academy.
Academy.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So it's an NPSL Academy where the NPSL funded this whole thing.
Yep.
And provided an opportunity for, how many referees were in that?
I think at the time it was 12.
12. I was going to say 12. I was going to say 12 for those keeping score at home. That's one for Gordie. 12 referees.
Yep. All from different states.
And it was Paul and I'm blanking on who else was there.
Kim Oberly.
So there was it's kind of an intensive of sorts.
Yep.
You worked games, you had classroom sessions, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Individualized feedback as well, which was very helpful from people of their stature.
Right, absolutely. So you had a lot of opportunity. I mean, that right there is a really cool opportunity.
Yeah.
To work with those names and to build relationships with some of those people that you have friends, you're now considered friends with, right? And they're from all over the country. Yep. It wasn't just a regional thing, they're spread out, right? And that's just, and so I guess, I mean, we could clip this and use it for recruiting and promoting and retaining officials, but these are the opportunities. And for those of you watching this that are already referees, it's like, yeah, I mean, we could reiterate the story over and over again. We could plug in a different person, different cities, but it's that same camaraderie, that beauty that comes with this. But for those that are on the fence, if you got somebody that's like, hey, I don't know, maybe this is an opportunity to show them, hey, come watch this incredible podcast and hear a little bit of Logan's story. So you're in an interesting season of life right now. You're in college. I'll let you say, where do you go to school? And so you're not only are you in college, you're playing collegiate soccer,
correct?
Division III,
Yep.
NCAA Division III, and you're also still actively officiating, or at least trying to.
Yes.
Right? So talk to us about that. Where are you in school?
I go to Nebraska Wesleyan University, located in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
It's a small institution, less than 2,000 people. But, it's been good for me so far. The playing side of things have been great. I came into a program that was on a rebuild. So we had a big group in my recruiting class. It was like 12 or 13 guys.
Yeah.
This year we saw success in that rebuild, making it to semifinals of our conference and having a historic record for the program. And so that was good to see. So we have a bright future because we're a young team. But yeah, the officiating part of it, with having practice 5-6 days a week, it's hard to get out there and do games, but I still try. I'll do college games up there when I can.
Not in your conference.
Not in my conference, no. Even though I'm on that list, no.
Yes, right.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's cool to go where our conference is. So we're in the American Rivers Conference, so just a bunch of Iowa schools. But most of the games that we have played, I've known someone on the crew.
Right.
And so it's been cool to see because it's people that, like we said, from other states that you meet at events.
Right.
That you have that bond with, and you can say hi, carry on a conversation before, after the game, whatever it is.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and send them videos of the grave injustices that have happened to you and your team.
Yep.
Yeah, hold long-standing grudges. Anyway, so yeah, very good, very cool. So you're continuing to navigate that. I know we had some conversations about what that's like to play and to referee at the same time, and I think I would think it would be safe to say there's probably others in your boat, right? That
yes.
Started to succeed at refereeing, and now we're facing this whole, like, what do I do in college? I'm going to go play collegiately. How can I do that kind of stuff? Are there any words of wisdom for those?
Yeah, so I had that debate as well when I was deciding whether I wanted to continue playing or just officiate. Mm-hmm. So I actually reached out to a couple people. I reached out to Kyle Atkins, because he said he did like club soccer at K-State when he was there.
Right.
And I also reached out to Corey Rockwell and just asked for advice. Because I was at the time when I was committing that, I was being seen at regional events, being picked to do things like USL, NPSL, stuff like that. So I was like, I don't want those opportunities to go away. But for me, the biggest thing was, you only go through college once. You can't go back. Refereeing will always be there for you.
Right.
And so if you still enjoy the game and you love the game, go play. If you have the opportunity to play, play. Because that opportunity is only there one time. So, and that was what they both, said to me, and it's something that stuck with me, and it's something that I tell people that are in the same boat that I am, or I was, debating that idea. That's what I tell them.
That's good. That's good stuff. Well, we're glad that you stuck with it. We're glad that you still make some time for it, but we're also cheering for you as you are a college student and a college athlete, which I'm sure will probably shape the way you referee games too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, playing at that collegiate level, that probably informs, would that be fair to say?
Yeah, refereeing has shaped the way I play. I play in a smarter way, in a sense, not that I play to get away with things. Sometimes, don't tell anybody, but
Right.
it's made me more educated in the game to be successful in the way I play.
Right.
And then that transforms vice versa the other way.
Right.
With refereeing as well. So.
Right. It's good stuff. Logan Clark, folks. Just the best of the best. We appreciate your time, and we're excited to continue to see you grow and develop as a student and athlete, but also as a referee, and support you along the way. So it's exciting. Thanks for your time today.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll move now to, we'll take a short break, and then we'll move to our segment, Coffee with Christina, talking about error correction and recovery. The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help. We're back with Coffee with Christina. Here we are. And yes, we're in the same clothes because we're recording these one after another. We're just going to own that. These are recorded one after another.
I thought about changing my hair to at least look a little different.
I thought about changing too. Like when I go to the mall and go to try the different samples in the food court, like put a mustache on or a hat. So they're like, this fatty's back for 3 rounds of teriyaki chicken.
Just lap it.
Yeah. Oh, what is this? Orange chicken? I haven't had it the first 4 times, Anyway, so last week we discussed routines. We talked about routines. This week we're talking about error correction or error recovery.
Yeah.
Okay. Errors are, especially in our line of work, are going to happen. We obviously are doing everything we can through the Check Complete podcast and many other resources to reduce the amount of errors. Decision accuracy obviously is a huge part of our job, but errors are going to happen and are probably under more scrutiny than, it always makes me laugh, like I'll see someone like miskick a ball and I'm like, why isn't anyone yelling at them?
Screaming.
For doing that. They're like, oh, okay, next time, Johnny. I'm like, if I made a call that bad, I would be chased off the field, right? So anyway, that piece, it seems to be, a heightened issue amongst us. So talk to us about what your conversations are, with athletes and coaches, and we'll see how we can connect that with officials as far as.
Yeah. Well, the first part of what you already said is errors are going to happen. And I think there's a level of perfectionism that athletes face, whether it be from coaches, parents, themselves, their own expectations, that is probably similar with officials. Maybe you don't expect perfection because you are so loudly criticized. So it's like in the forefront of your mind a little bit more than maybe athletes do. But the first part is planning how to face failure in small doses, like a missed call, instead of viewing it as this catastrophic event where you're going to, not be able to call the rest of the match in a way that is up to your standards. So not planning to fail, but planning the failure piece of, oh, okay, I knew this was going to happen, or I've planned for this, I can move forward, versus just being so shocked that a parent's yelling at you, right? Like, if you have that knowledge ahead of time, you're not shaken when perfectionism isn't matched.
Yeah. Well, I think, yes, I do think that people in our line of work understand some of the perfection, but I feel that. I mean, you go into a game and you don't want to miss things, right? Yeah. No matter what anybody says, no one in our line of work wants to miss anything. And I would say the majority of the time, 99.9% of the time, no one comes in with any sort of an agenda. So it's not like we're missing things on purpose, right?
Yeah. You don't live for screaming parents and coaches.
No.
Yeah,
So it's like, there's no match fixing going on at U12 at the local fields, right?
I hope not. That's a lot of energy on your end, if there is.
You give us a penalty, I'll give you a $10 Starbucks card.
That's one drink now, so that's not worth it.
It's not even worth it. So, but I mean, I go in and it is hard. Like even watching my games back or things like that, you go, I missed that. I didn't. It hurts. You don't want to do that. So what you're saying is not necessarily going. Well, I'm going to give myself 5 kicked calls. But it's the mental preparation of okay, if/when something goes not as I planned and I make a mistake, I'm prepared and ready to go. That's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So for some officials, and you can give me a few examples of different calls that you might miss or if you make incorrectly. But if you have similar coaches or teams that you're officiating against, maybe there's a preparation of, hey, last time there was some of this going on and I felt like I missed it. Or maybe there was a big play where they're now going to be looking because last time this happened. So part of the preparation is knowing, just like a team would, knowing your opponent. So knowing the teams that you have, maybe Johnny has a dad that you're going to hear chirping all the time, and that might impact you, which when we talk about attention and things like that, that'll also help. But for error recovery, when you aren't caught off guard by a screaming parent because you've reffed them how many times, I think there's a level of comfort in that of I'm still can be frustrated, but all the other things coming at me, I can kind of roll through a little easier.
Right. Sure. And I think I know the criticism that could come from this is, well, you've got rabbit ears. You were expecting us to do this. When we so let's say we have an issue with a coach or an assistant coach that we knew going into it, this person has a track record.
Sure.
And it's interesting because I had these conversations like, coaches, they will say, wow, we got stuck with this guy again. Okay. Well, what I'll say, and I had this with a coach a couple of years ago with an official, they were like, oh, we always get this guy and this and this and this. I go, wouldn't you want a fresh slate from us? Like, you wouldn't want us carrying things from game to game.
Yeah.
Like, from what you saw. Like, we had you a month ago. This happened. You're like, you know what? You'd want a fresh slate from us. We want a fresh slate from you. So there is an element of that. Yeah. But it also, you don't just go in blindly. You have that in the back of your mind that, okay, this guy or this gal can tend to be more vocal. Or, these set of parents tend to be a lot more animated and maybe unruly. And so we don't go in looking for it, perhaps, but we go in with an awareness of it. Is that a fair way to put that?
Yeah, and I think some of it is similar to a team preparing for an opponent they know well. Yeah. So maybe instead of focusing on the way the coach coaches or the way the parents interact with you, it's the style of play, right? Yeah. So if you are aware that this team plays a certain way and the team they're playing plays differently, knowing, okay, when I officiate these types of teams, these are the types of calls that I need to be ready for. Right. And it might not have anything to do with the crowd or the coaches or the players per se. It might be the game itself. Yeah. I think that's the way you can prepare versus having this anticipatory reaction to outside sources. I think that's more staying focused despite those things.
Yeah. Well, and I think that this goes to doing your research. We talk about this with our officials. And nowadays, that's more and more accessible at many levels. There's opportunities to see game film, or there's opportunities to know going in. I think about it that we're still in college postseason stuff, but it's almost like the World Cup thing. Those referees know, okay, this team, they're good with a win or a tie. Yeah. So it's going to change their tactics, potentially. This team has to win, and they have to win by 4 goals. Right. Or so there's goal differential things. So then you go, okay, this is where we understand tactically why this team is delaying restarts, or they're taking a long time for throw-ins or goal kicks or something, because they're more than content with this thing being 0-0. Right. Or even knowing, we think about it, some of it in our collegiate level, and just in Kansas City, We know, okay, there's one team that they're going to connect passes and build out of the back and have it be methodical. Then there's other teams where it's just like they're cramming it down your throat.
Yeah.
It's very direct. It's very physical. And so going into the game knowing, okay, I know what I'm going to get, right?
Yeah.
This game is going to be physical. There's going to be a lot of aerial challenge. There's going to be a lot of balls over the top versus ping, 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 ping. It's like methodical, moving the ball off the field. And that I think is not a foreign concept to anyone that's been in officiating for any length of time, is understanding what that looks like going into it. So the error recovery piece seems to connect with that, right? That you're going, okay, I know what type of challenges I might see.
Yeah,
right?
and you know what your weaknesses might be as an official
Right.
based on those things, or your strengths are. Because I think sometimes what throws you off your game might be you're really strong in making certain calls or seeing certain things, and if you miss those, I think it's one thing when like you have a weakness and you're like, I can recover from that. But when you know what you are really good at calling and you make an error there, those are things that you also have to prepare for by knowing, hey, this team's really physical. There's probably a way for me to get my footing again and be able to respond in a positive way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the thing for, like, to connect it to my own experience, not that my experiences, but just for the sake of our conversation to connect it very specifically to soccer officiating, I think for me, I look at some of my strong suits is my ability to connect with people and to manage players and coaches and things like that. Be able to use my words, de-escalate situations. So when I feel like the errors that are most difficult for me to recover from are the moments in which I feel like I screwed up being able to manage a frustrated situation.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I actually poured gasoline on that fire, right?
Right.
You know, or I just went and gave a yellow card for something that, you know what, I probably could have been more empathetic and been a better listener and been able to diffuse that without having to burn a caution or something like that. I think for me, that's where my mind went when you said, analyzing your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And where I feel most disappointed, like if I'm like, okay, I'm not the stealthiest, fastest person. So if I get beat down the field and I don't have a clear look at something, I'm going to be pissed.
But it's not going to shock you.
But I'm going to be like, okay, you know what? Whatever. I can deal with that because I worked, I did as much as I could.
Yep.
I did everything within my control, and I ended up, at least in that moment, now maybe it does point to some things where you're like, okay, maybe you could lose 20 pounds, whatever it is. Okay, but...
We're not condoning that.
No. But, but everything that I did within my control was right. I mean, everything I could do, and I gave the best possible outcome based on my skill set. But I think then, like you're saying, the thing that rattles my cage the most, that's hard for me to recover, is to go, did I really manage that situation right? Somebody who prides themselves on the ability to communicate and de-escalate and listen, when it doesn't go as planned, that's hard for me.
Yeah. So let's create a routine for you, because you've already kind of created your own routine with ones that, like, it's down the field. You listed all of these things as to how you can recover from that quickly, because you knew that wasn't your strong suit, but you can make all these other calls and still have a really strong game.
Right.
So you poured gasoline on a situation and you didn't mean to. If you are still thinking about that, right, during the rest of the game, you are going to have a hard time calling a clean game, most likely, right? So in athletics, one of the things I would say to a player is, if you're going to ruminate on this, right, the way you move on is you have to have a physical symbol to, like, move on from it. So you see in gymnastics, if an athlete falls from a balance beam, they, like, wipe their hands, take a deep breath, and get back up, right? You see a baseball pitcher maybe touch the mound, right, and throw some dirt, whatever that looks like, they're getting rid of it. In volleyball, if my libero's off the floor, I tell them that they can be pissed about it as long as they're holding their water bottle. But when they put their water bottle down and are ready to go back in, they're not allowed to hold on to that anymore.
Interesting.
So in officiating, what could that be for you in that situation?
That's a great question. Something to tangibly, maybe
Again, connecting that physical and that mental piece together.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. That's something to be able to let go of that. I mean, we talk about, one of the things that we've heard people at the higher level say is the 24-hour rule, like after a game. If you find out you did something wrong, you missed a decision, there was something, even if it was minor, but especially things that are more catastrophic that could have game outcome impact.
Yeah.
you give yourself 24 hours. Either way, I look at it and I nailed it. You give your 24 hours.
You don't get to keep doing this
right.
for
You
a
give
week
yourself
and a half,
24 hours to look at it and go, yeah. And you rewatch it, you send it to everybody. But conversely, right? Like on the other side, if you had something where you really kicked it, you give yourself 24 hours, but then you move on. So I think more in the moment, I'd have to think about that.
Because officials don't get to like go to the sideline and hang out for a second, or so it's whatever that looks like in the moment. Maybe it's controlling your breath. Maybe it's taking a deep breath in, exhaling quickly, and moving on. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's having a self-talk phrase, again, in your own voice, something that is in your own verbiage, right? That means something to you, to where you can just say it, and maybe you even say it out loud and in the third person. So you're telling yourself something. Mm-hmm. So like, Gordie, we're moving on, whatever that looks like.
Right.
And then you aren't allowed to revisit it until the game is over.
Right.
And then you can start your 24-hour clock if that works for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two sides to this almost, because you're going to have a good chunk of games for a good chunk of our audience are working games without communication devices where they're communicating with their crew. But then there's going to be a chunk of us that get the opportunity in our career at some point to work games where we're connected by communication devices with our assistant referees and that kind of thing. So maybe those are opportunities to be able to, especially if there's people that you work with. Like I've got some people that I know really well that can read my body language, and I'll even say things like, hey, I will check in with you visually as well as verbally if we're on communication devices. But visually, if we're not on communication devices, I will check with you visually at prolonged dead balls. So if the ball goes dead and we're substituting, I'm going to look at both my assistant referees and I will give a wave and a thumbs up. If you don't see me doing that, I'm in my own head.
Okay.
And I need you to do something to get me out of my own head. And so maybe those are those kinds of things where, and that's usually a result of an error or a perceived error on my behalf.
And athletes do the same thing. You'll see an athlete make sure to make physical contact. You see it in foul shooting. If they make their shot or miss, they like put their hands out and wait for every one of their teammates that's on the floor with them to high five them. And that's them to reset and go again. Or maybe they're stepping away from that line and coming back up. So for you, if you have a crew that you know really well, that can be part of it. Bigger games, you're probably not walking into an officiating crew that you've never met before. And so if you can have that camaraderie of, hey, like maybe at halftime you tell them what's going on and you need to look for XYZ in the second half. And if you don't know your officiating crew, you know yourself. And I think setting some standards for yourself is important.
And here, what I'm hearing and what you're saying too is, you guys with coaches and players, you have your pregame routines and things. We have to go back to a routine concept from last week, but we have our pregame conversation, and that's gonna vary in length based on our time. So that probably bumps A, B, and C. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back to last week and watch that. But I think that's a conversation that happens before the game. You go, and it depends on the level, but like, a lot of youth games where they're 30 minutes before. We just got over our state cup. We want them there an hour before, which might feel a little excessive. College, it could be an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, depending on where you're working. But that is so that we don't feel rushed and we can have those conversations to be able to go, okay, if things don't go as planned, if errors occur, and that could be an opportunity to be, but that does feel, that feels, especially if you're working with people you don't know, that feels really vulnerable, right?
Yeah, and I think there is a community that probably every official has or is working to have, to where you can check in before and after games if you're not working with them. Like, so as a coach, I have a group of coaches that we check in with each other. Big wins, big losses. When I was in the NCAA, we would check in on certain days because we'd watch each other's games, on the weekends and then check in. And so there's a level of that too for the bigger error recoveries, right? But in the moment, you think about athletes, a coach can't hold their hand in that moment. They need them to move on and find a way. We can deal with it later. We can fix it later. And so as an official, maybe there's this range of missed calls where you can address it later. Maybe there are bigger ones that you can't, and we need to have some connection with the crew that we're with. But if it's a quick missed call and now you know you're going to be thinking about it way too much. What can you, maybe it's you tighten your shoelace, maybe it's you straighten your sock, and you just are like, I am letting go of this. Or it's controlling your breath and saying something. I think those controllable factors allow you to intentionally face it. And then whatever that crew responsibility is, if you're with close friends or maybe post game, those things can help build towards that of how can I fix it going forward? Yeah. But you can't change that it happened in the moment. You've got to find a way to continue on to do your best for the whole entire match that you have.
Right. One of the things I like to do is give the nearest player a wedgie. I find that.
Luckily, he never makes errors, so he never does it.
This has been really, really good because I think this is something that I think a lot of officials struggle with. You know, it's the error or the perception of error, big reactions from players, because coaches, crowd.
The error might not have even been that bad, but parents are going to make it feel
right.
Whereas I'm a parent, I understand, but there's this illuminating factor that I think officials then feel this undue pressure on them for something that might have easily been moved on if they were in an empty field.
Right. Yeah, really good stuff. So this was Error Recovery, Coffee with Christina. Next week, we're going to talk about attention and focus. Yeah, that'll be fun. Especially, I know some of you are going, yeah, I've worked some of those games where you're like, I'm pinching myself to stay awake. Yeah. So maybe more broadly than that, than just trying to find ways to stay engaged. But attention and focus, which is huge, I think. Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. The Check Complete podcast is brought to you in part by JF Consulting Tax Preparation and Bookkeeping. Taxes suck, we can help. Well, I am very excited to sit down virtually through the wide world of Zoom with Greg Barkey. Greg he's got a lot of titles here. He's got a lot of things. So he's a former FIFA AR. He's pros manager of video review currently. So many of you have seen him on a week-by-week basis in his Inside Video Review videos. So we just feel very honored to have him here with us today. And then we've learned some other things about Greg in our pre-call conversation. You worked for Telemundo, so we'll get to that in a minute. You were a high school Spanish teacher. You grew up in Argentina and an avid bird watcher. Actually, I think I made that.
Yeah, but that ain't happening. I'm not avid watching any birds.
No birds. Just maybe the ones that you're about.
Maybe Netflix when I'm not working.
A turkey bird that you're about to carve into, right?
Yeah.
So, so you, before we get into some of the questions on here, your background's fascinating. So you grew up in Argentina. You were there from what age to what age?
I was from 6.5 to 14. My parents were missionaries, and we lived in the interior. I'll tell you, it's called Santiago del Estero. Unless you're from Argentina, you have no idea where that is.
Yeah.
So it's way in the area, it's poor area. We lived there. And I learned to play soccer in the streets. That's how I learned to speak Spanish. My parents just said, go out and play with the kids. And I'd go out there, and if you had a ball, you had friends in Argentina.
Yeah.
I had a ball. And so I had lots of friends until it was time to go home. And then you had to kind of argue with everybody. Hey, I have to go home, take the ball with you, But that's how I learned. I really didn't play organized soccer until I came back to the United States when I was 15. So it was always just playing in the streets. I in many ways, growing up that young, I speak Spanish with an Argentine accent. I learned it in the streets. I did get in trouble sometimes because I come in and tell my parents a new word that boys had taught me. And then I'd get grounded for a couple of days because I had no idea what the word meant. The kids thought it was hilarious that I was going around saying it was still a kind of an English accent. But so I have a kind of a heart for Argentina, having grown up there for so long and very formative years. I'm a fan of Independiente, so if people from Argentina wouldn't understand that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I was, of course, very excited about the World Cup final. That was my second team. U.S. is my first team. Like I told you before, glad I saw Argentina win their second World Cup. My next one is to see the United States win the World Cup. So I hope to live long enough to see that and stuff. And if that happens, I'll be crying and jumping up and down like the Argentines were today too.
Yeah, what 4 million or 6 million people in the streets of Buenos Aires all
Yeah.
over the place. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, expected by me. So
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm curious, when you moved back to the States and you started playing organized soccer in the United States, what was that transition like from playing in Argentina to now organized soccer in the United States?
well, it was strange because in Argentina it was just always whoever showed up, a couple rocks for the goals, maybe some sticks, and it was make teams and play dirt. I don't remember ever playing like on a grass field.
Right.
That, and so all of a sudden you're playing on a grass field and organized, and I was obviously better than most of the American kids at that point, because it was in Fort Collins, Colorado. If anybody's knows the Fort Collins Arsenal, I was on the very first team that they ever made. My parents helped organize that club. It's a big club now, but
okay, no, keep going. Sorry.
And so basically my parents and a couple of our parents helped organize the first soccer club in Fort Collins, Colorado, because I wanted to play. And I came this close to not playing because if they didn't organize the soccer club, I was going to go out for football, American football.
Oh.
And I did it in the end. So that
as a
was
kicker, would you find yourself, where are you like on the line of scrimmage?
No, I'm an athlete. So, at that point, that time of my life, I'd play anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I probably would have been a wide receiver or something. Because fortunately for me, I was always fast. So for the fitness test that all referees take, the speed parts were the easy part for me. It was the long distance stuff that I struggled with pretty much all my career. The older people remember the Cooper test, and then the 6 3/4 laps that you had to do. That part was always difficult for me. But the sprints, they were a piece of cake. And I didn't mind that part at all. But then when you get older, you get slower.
Yeah. And ibuprofen becomes more prominent. So
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
In fact, I took some just before this started, not because I thought you were going to cause me pain or something, but because I came from playing. It was my over 50 team at an indoor place, and so I thought if I don't take some ibuprofen now, I'm going to not be able to sleep tonight. So
that's right. There you go. Well, and this is slightly off script, but thinking about growing up in Argentina, playing soccer there, I know we talk about there's the national conversation about how we improve as a national team and be able to compete on the world stage. Is some of that just in these other countries, there is this truly grassroots love for the game where you get out and you just play together. Whereas out here, and I even have conversations with local coaches when I'm out and about, that they're like, these kids don't really love the game. And it seems like in other parts of the world, there's this absolute love and give us a ball and we'll play anywhere.
Well, I think that's one of the issues that U.S. soccer has to deal with. To me, if you drove down the street in Argentina, you would see a little field between two houses and 10 kids just playing with the ball. Maybe not even a ball that has air in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Here, unless you have a parent and a coach and cones stuff, they don't play. And I think that's the one thing we need. It's just free play soccer. That's why I don't know if you've ever been to Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey, but as you drive down there, they have in there they have this one caged in soccer field. It's a little turf field. It's small size, like 77 size. It is always full with just kids playing, and you can see it's nothing organized. No one's got uniforms on. There's you don't know whose team's on whose. But to me, that's what we need all over the country is these little cages where kids can just go in there with 3-4 guys and just have fun, try to meg each other, all that sort of stuff, which we just don't do here. Right. I mean, if I went down to my park on the weekend, there's not going to be any kids playing just for the fun of it. I mean, there'll be a coach there with maybe 10 players, cones set out, and they're doing their thing. But to just see, a couple guys that put some rocks on both sides and made a little goals and they're playing, we just don't do that here. And I think it's the biggest thing that we miss out on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's talk about your referee story, your referee journey before we get into your current roles and all that entails. So where did you get started? How did you get started as an official? Because you were in love with the game, you were a player. How did you transition to the dark side, quote unquote?
As you know, I mean, missionaries are poor.
Yeah.
So when we came back to the United States, I went to high school in Fort Collins, and I went to Bethel University in Minnesota, and I had to pay for my education. And a guy said, "Hey, there's a referee course. Want to come? We can make some money on the weekend." refereeing, and we know soccer. So I went, and believe it or not, it happened to be a course that was run by Fotis Bazakos' father. I didn't know
Wow.
who Fotis was. I didn't know his father, but he ran the course. And so many years later, I told Fotis, I said, hey, by the way, your dad is what brought me into soccer. So I got the license, and I immediately went into adult soccer refereeing.
Oh, wow.
I never did any youth games until I moved to New Jersey and was starting more of the track sort of thing. So I was just doing adult games, and I liked it. I was getting like 40, 50 bucks. And then I'd work in an indoor place. I was in college, so I worked in an indoor place where I'd start at 7 and go till midnight and just do one game after the other.
Yeah.
And it was purely for the money. There's nothing here that I fell in love with refereeing, blah, blah, blah. That's all BS. I needed the money. I paid for my own education. And so, after that, and then, once I graduated from college, it was right when the NASL folded, pretty much. And I wanted to play professionally. I mean, I dreamed that. I don't know if I was ever be good enough or not, but there was nowhere to go to trial at maybe a second division level or something where you need a couple years to develop. And I was refereeing, and I thought, you know what? I like this refereeing stuff. I'm playing semi-professional with a team here in New Jersey, and we're really good, but it's not going anywhere. I mean, if we win a game, sometimes the guy would give us $50, that type of thing. And if we finished first, we get a bunch of new uniforms. That's what I was playing at.
Right.
But then it came a point where I had to choose one or the other. And I happened to be at one of those referee meetings, and that every state has, where they tell you to go and someone speaks. And it just happened to be a guy had come back from one of the national camps, one of the old referees, and told me about it. And I thought, man, that's interesting to me. So there's actually a track to go. And then I thought, well, it's a way to get into the bigger games and stuff. And there was no professional league this time. So I said, I'm going to try to do this. I want to go to national camp. So I counted every game, did games, and did tournaments where I could just to build up. At that time, you had to have like 100 games as a referee and 50 as an AR to move up to the state level. You had to sit at the state level for 3 years before you could even be nominated for the national camp. So it was a really long process. So I got started with it right away. And I made it to the national level when I was 27, 28. So I was one of the youngest people there. And and this is an interesting story, me and Kevin Stott sat next to each other in a meeting. We met each other for the first time. And we both looked at each other. And at that time, all the FIFA panel would sit in the front row. We said to each other, we're going to be sitting in the front row someday.
That's awesome.
So we challenged each other. And so Kevin and I are close friends from that. We did make it to the front. I had a goal of being a fifth. I wanted to be a fifth referee, to be honest. But what happened is I looked at the landscape. At that time, Brian Hall was ahead of me. S.E. Bahamas was ahead of me. Kevin Stott was there. And I thought if I moved to the referee panel, I would have to, this whole line of people I'd have to beat out to make it to the World Cup. That's what I wanted to do. And so I said, the AR track is better for me. I'm good at it. The guys like working with me as AR. And so that's why I ended up choosing that way, and not moving away from it. Because at the very beginning, you could kind of start as an AR and then move to the referee panel. Not anymore. Now you're tracked as an AR or tracked as a referee right up pretty early. That time you could do both. So I was still refereeing. I was almost refereeing everything and just ARing when it was an international game. So then that changed slowly over history. And then I realized I was probably the number one AR, and I had a good chance of going to the World Cup. Brian Hall, when he went to Korea, he was the last one to go as a single. After that point is when they made teams.
Okay.
So that's where it helped out, because now as an AR, I had a chance.
Right.
And then we ended up going to Germany.
Wow. Yeah. So
it was for the money.
Yeah.
I mean, now, but I'll tell you now, young referee, I'll tell you this. Now there is a professional track for you. There is a way that you can make a living off of refereeing now. And when I started, there was no living as a referee. You made some money, and sometimes decent money, but you better have had another job. If you had a family, forget it. You had to have another job. Maybe as a single person, you could get away with it, but now there is a clear track that you can have a professional career as a referee for many years. If you get there, talk about Kyle Atkins or something like that. He's young enough, and he could be there for another 15 years.
Right.
And make good money. He does another job and stuff like that. But you talk about some of our youngest referees, Lucas Spala, who just came in last year. He's, still in his 30s, right at that age. he could go for another 15 years
Right.
as a professional referee. And so when you look at that, there is a career path there with, 401, the whole thing, insurance, and, you can have a family, you can, obviously there's weekends away from home, but that we already deal with that. You're already weekends away, no matter what you're doing, whatever level referee you are,
Right.
you're doing weekends away. But now I think for a young referee, if you set that goal, it's there. Obviously you have to perform, but there is a possible track, which I would say 10 years ago, it would be really a pipe dream for most people.
Sure.
Just was a very select few. Now there's a real track. Next year we got 29 MLS teams playing. So we already have to hire more referees. We have to hire more assistant referees. And then on top of that, if you love working in soccer and refereeing, we have to hire more staff. You have to, you just can't, even more assessors or, physios. Whenever you grow a company like this, refereeing, there's all these ancillary positions that I tell you what, they're filled with people who love refereeing and love soccer.
Yeah.
They realize, okay, I can't be a professional referee myself, but I can be associated with it. I can help. I can work at it. And it's a great business if you love soccer and if you love refereeing. And so I would say we have maybe 20, 30 people that work with pro, not necessarily employees, but work there because they're ex-referees that love soccer and refereeing, and so they are a great help to us. And I think now as a young referee to have that career opportunity, when you're in college and you're getting out to graduate and you're thinking, do I go into a business degree somewhere or do I give it a shot? And if you're good, you're in good physical shape, take care of your body and whatnot, you have a chance, and it's opened up more and more. Like we have more scouts. There's more chance you get seen by people.
Right.
When you look at our pro panel of referees, we almost have just about every state represented somewhere.
Yeah.
North Dakota's in there. South Dakota's in there. We have Wyoming. We got, when you think of it, places that you would not traditionally say, oh, this is where we get great referees from.
Right.
So you do have an opportunity to get seen and reach that level.
Right. People that have kind of blazed trails a little bit and have been brought in and provide a lot of opportunities, which is great, and having a lot of great experiences, which brings us to kind of the
seltzer water, just so you know.
That's fine. You do what you want to do, man. Most people have to have to get through to an interview with me, but
I've already had 3 because I heard you were going to be mean.
Oh gosh!
And add the ibuprofen I took.
That's right. Yeah, that's a little cocktail.
Keep asking me questions. You're going to find out more things.
So what are the memorable, funny, exciting, terrifying? We're all ears for stuff that's along your journey that stands out in your mind, that were shaping moments, exciting moments, terrifying. I'm all ears.
Okay. Well, I can tell you one kind of terrifying moment, but it didn't turn out to be that, is taking the fitness tests to make it to the World Cup.
Ooh.
The stress level of that. I was perfectly in shape to do it. In my local track, at that time you had to do 10 laps after the sprints, then 10 laps, the interval test, and I remember I did at my local track, I did 22 laps once in my training. So there was no doubt I could do it.
Right.
But it's just the thought that what happens if you wake up that morning, you're not feeling quite well, you get a little thing in your hamstring or something, and because at that time the whole crew would go home. Not just you.
Yeah.
So you would be the person that killed the dream for 200 people. And I tell you, it was nerve-wracking. I didn't sleep at all the night before. Yeah. But at the same point, the elation of passing it is just, even though you knew you were going to pass it, but it just was, I hated it. I hated it very much.
I remember the same thing for me. Yeah.
It's just, yeah. Yeah.
I shared that. Yeah. No, very. Yeah. Oh, I can't imagine. I can't imagine that. But and I'm sure the World Cup being one of those unbelievable experiences as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. And as a referee, when you think about it, you always want to do the final. And of course, I'm disappointed I didn't do that, but I made it there, and I kept on telling myself, there's about 100,000 referees that would love to take my place. Whenever I felt disappointed about not getting the game or something like that, I said, you know what, you're living the dream of so many referees. So it was pretty fun. It was a great experience. It helped me in my career now. I'm a FIFA instructor. I'm going to be going to Bolivia in about 2 weeks to teach VAR there. And, then basically I'm a VAR instructor around the world. Great experience to travel for me. I'm talking about travel. If you want to hear kind of a funny story, went to Honduras versus Mexico. And it was a World Cup qualifier in Honduras, San Pedro Sula. And we get picked up at the airport. You don't go through passport. They find you there. They take you to the side, and you get into a van, and there's a truck full of police in front of you or army. Behind you, there's another pickup truck with officers in it, and then inside there's like 3 or 4 plainclothesmen inside the van with you. Wow. And so we're going through there, and the guys on the motorcycles are just kicking cars to get them out of the way. If a car's in the way, beep, 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 boom, kick it with their foot to get you through there. And we were just going to the hotel. This is when arrival. We get to the hotel, and I get out first because I have to be by the door. I get out. The plainclothes person gets out after me, and their gun falls out and goes clatter, 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 clatter. I'm just spinning around right by my feet. I'm thinking, oh. So obviously they're embarrassed about it. But at the hotel, then you're on your own floor. We were on our own floor, and there's a guard at the staircase and at the elevator. Nobody can come under or down. And we do the game. It's the first time Honduras ever beats Mexico. They beat them 2-0. We come back to the hotel. We walk in the restaurant, and the people in the restaurant stop and applaud us. So it's just surreal, It's like you walk into a hotel and people are applauding you because you refereed the game and Honduras won.
Yeah.
So that was just a kind of a funny one. There's been tons of them. I mean, I have the ball for the very first goal ever scored in LA Galaxy Stadium.
Wow.
Even though they think they have it. Because what we did before the game, they told us the first goal, grab the ball, they want to 7 it to put him in the museum, for LA Galaxy first goal. And I think it's actually inside their store. They have a look in a frame thing. So we thought, let's get our names on the ball. So we ended up putting our names on one of the panels of the ball. Like it was Faraday. I can't remember who it was myself. Yeah. But we didn't get done in time. There's like 13 balls, and we only got 10 there. So we told the fourth official, if they happen to score with one of the balls that doesn't have our name, just swap it out, and they'll never know. So what they happened to do is they actually did score with one of the balls that didn't have the name. They swapped it out, and I took the other one home. I have it here somewhere.
That's amazing.
So they think they have the first ball from it. I mean, silly stuff like that. But the funny thing is, that's what I remember, but I don't remember the game at all. As anybody's referee career, and I will tell this for any young person, you're not going to really remember the games. You're only going to remember 1 or 2 games in your lifetime, but you're going to remember the people you refereed and what you did before and after the game. Ooh. And that's what makes refereeing such a love, something of love to do, because it's not really the games. I mean, I remember a few games. There's some big calls you make, but I did, some 700-800 games probably, professional games. I did 320 MLS games. I can remember maybe 2 or 3 of them that were like crucial, big decision, whatever happened. But I can remember so many stories of going out to dinner with the guys afterwards, or what happened before, etc. And that's really what makes refereeing what it is. So
shoot, we could shut the interview down right there. We won't. But that is a great. We'll have
Let me take another drink then.
Yeah. Get your seltzer water in your system. So let's transition to your role now. The role that you found yourself in with Pro, and then now traveling internationally with FIFA. So Pro's manager of video review. What does that look like? I'm out of my own curiosity. What does a week by week look like in that role?
Yeah, well, right now it's sweet because we're mid-season. So really, what my days right now is getting prepared for our national camps coming up. We have NWSL VAR coming up. We're having some training down in Florida first week of January. So that's what we're all preparing for. But it's really kind of slow right now. I was enjoying the World Cup, etc. But now I'll tell you about a normal week. So you have your games on Saturday, Sunday. And of course, right now I'll usually travel down to Atlanta to our centralized location and be there and supervise, make sure anything happens. Most of the games go smooth, but if there's some issue, I'm right there. I can talk to the press. We can, let, for example, Howard or Mark know right away what happened. So if we'll call the producer directly and say, hey, what you're explaining on air is wrong. This is what actually happened. So that helps build the story correctly, so we don't have this narrative that's completely wrong that they're talking about when this was actually what happened. So that's why we have a supervisor there. It's between me, Alan Kelly, Mark Geiger. We take turns kind of going down there, but we're there, and we have 14 little pods where the games go out of. So that's like what it does. But then the big one is Monday. Monday's where we kind of go through everything that happened, and obviously the reviews that happened we know about, but then we look at plays that maybe should have been reviewed. Right. And so really we kind of know which ones they are, because usually there's kind of a key incident in the game. And then we'll make like an initial decision, like, no, this is a good check complete. It wasn't a clear foul, whatever. We'll look at the reviews, each one of us separately. Howard, well, now he's gone, but Mark and Alan will kind of look at it on our own, kind of formulate our own opinion on them. And I will then, of course, I log it all, and we have a database, etc., that gets filled in. And we'll look at it. We'll say, like, look at this. It was a good review. Or sometimes say good review, but the referee should have changed their decision. Or something, we don't like those. The worst ones we hate are the ones where it's not a good review and the referee does change the decision. So in other words, we took what wasn't a wrong decision on the field and made it wrong. Right. So those we hate. They happen every now and then. They're a nightmare. But they're very, very rare. I think last year we had one of those every 120 games.
Yeah.
So it happens. And sometimes, you know what, most people don't even know. Sometimes we're more self-critical. There's things that happen that have no effect on the game, but they should have been reviewed. And we don't want them to happen in a more critical moment. And there's some that are super critical, like it's 1-to-1 and there's a penalty situation and it doesn't get reviewed and it should have been. That's a problem. Then we have to deal with the coaches and whatnot and the teams. We're usually very open with the teams. If we have to admit that we're wrong, we're wrong. And then basically we have on Wednesdays, we have our KMI meeting where we meet and we go through all the KMIs and we have to vote on them. I'm one of 3 votes to see if they're right or wrong. Majority are right. And then usually Thursday or Friday, I start writing the script for Inside Video Review. We started that kind of strangely because when we were the very first ones to start VAR with Australia and Italy. So we were the very first, and there were so many questions from the press, from everybody, and they wanted to find a way to kind of explain things to people because it was so new. So we actually did a pilot where I went to New York in the studio and they interviewed me about the week. But I thought to myself, there's no way I'm going into New York. We travel too much. We're going to miss weeks and people are going to think we're hiding stuff. So I had my own in this very room here. I have a green screen and I worked at Telemundo in post-production. So I made the first version on my own without telling Howard or anybody in MLS. And I sent it to him, I said, what do you think of this? And they loved it, and that's what started. And basically, we wanted to explain, and it was more so not always right or wrong decision, but this is what happened, so you understand what happened. This is what the VAR was thinking, and we put the audio, and the audio is key. People want the audio. We tried, and I'll get my hand slapped again here. We tried to put the audio out live. We want to at MLS. I want to put the audio live when the referee is at the monitor. We want that audio to be live on air, but we got shut down. We're still trying. We wanted to be first. If some of you were paying attention at MLS is back in Orlando during COVID, we actually did it. It got great reviews in the press everywhere. Everybody loved it. Said, look at you. The MLS is doing it right. We got shut down by the powers that be in Europe. They said, you can't do that without permission. Main reason, of course, because we can't do it everywhere else. So that was kind of the main issue. We're still trying. We have a proposal in front of them. It has to be approved. We're asking for an experimental proposal where we can experiment with this. Don't know if it's going to happen or not, but we're making the effort because for me, our referees and VRs are so good that you should be allowed to hear them. And sometimes you're going to hear the doubt in their voices. There's no doubt that every now and then a VR goes, ooh, is that a handball? And just like you, when you see a play, you think, ooh, is that a handball? Is that enough? Right. And we work with them to try to make them more decisive. Our VRs are pretty good with that. We train them, and during the week, then we have a private web page where we put every single decision that the VAR does. And our referees vote on it. Our ARs vote on it. Our VARs vote on it. And they vote with their names. So they put, I think it's a good review, good outcome. So there's 2 things for every review. Is the review correct in recommending it? Like, is it a clear error? Yes or no? And then is the final outcome correct or not? So when the referee goes to the monitor, did he actually change the decision to the correct one? So they vote on every one of them. So last year we had 161 reviews. I know the opinion of every one of our referees on every one of those. And so that helps us track. If, for example, us as management are thinking, oh, that's a good one, and all the referees are saying, no, that's terrible, we don't want that, then we know that we need to adjust. Or we need to say, hey, referees, VARs, we want you over here. And so they all do that. We have a website that we use. All the referees go in there and they vote every week. And then I put in afterwards our final decision, so they all know exactly what pro thinks about the decision, okay, and our opinion, and then also things that you need to learn from each event. Like if the VAR did something wrong, or I shouldn't say wrong, maybe could have done something better, like he did things out of order, or how he talked to the replay operator to make it more efficient. We'll criticize our guys if they go too long. I mean, there's no reason that it should take more than a minute for the VAR to make a decision if he's seeing the video. There's just no reason, because if you see the video, you got to make a decision. If that's what you got, that's what you got. Make a decision. And new VARs want to say, okay, is there another angle? Is there one more? Let me see it one more time. We've had some people look at the same replay 18 times in a row in a loop and just can't make a decision. And so they actually kind of lose their concentration because they're almost like hypnotized by the replay. Right. So we teach them how to break that and how to get out of that. So our worst review last year lasted 5 minutes. Embarrassing. And mainly was because the VAR was indecisive at first, and then when the referee went to the monitor, he was indecisive because it just wasn't a good review. Because, like many people say, if it's taking you over 2 minutes, how can it be clear and obvious?
Not right.
And there's truth to that, really. If you don't, sometimes we just don't have the angle. There have been times where we think it's a handball, a penalty kick, but we have zero angles to prove it. And it's really hard for the VARs to say, you know what, I think it's wrong, but I got nothing that says, I don't have any video evidence. It's not like the World Cup. We have usually 14 to 15 cameras per game. They have 36, something like that per game. So, there's times where just the angle is wrong. We just can't get it.
Right. Right. Well, it makes me laugh when we do these college games and these coaches use videos. It's like, it looks like it's being filmed on a potato at midfield. I don't understand why you think we're going to get a clear angle for this.
Yeah. And that's our issue with offside. Right. People ask us why we don't use offside lines. And one of the issues is, at first it was costly. But that's not the issue anymore. It's mostly we don't have enough cameras. We don't have goal line cameras in all the stadiums. And you really need goal line cameras to put the lines, because if the ball is past the camera and they're shooting it this direction, you can't you don't know where the front of people's bodies are to put the line. Yeah. So you have to have the camera in front of the players of the defensive line and the attackers to see, you put it on the knee, you put it on the foot, you put it on the head, because if you're looking this way, you can do it. But if you're looking the opposite way, it's covered in its back, so you can't put a fair line. Even though the lines that we do have available that we could put are accurate, completely accurate, but we just can't put them there because there's no way to know exactly where they've got to go. You're right. Once we put them there, they're accurate. So that's why we decided, let's just go with no lines. We will go, our clear and obvious will be that when you look at it, does it say to you offside or not? And overall, the teams accept it. They're pretty good with it. We probably end up with a lot more goals being allowed than disallowed, because when it's close, our ARs are very good at keeping the flag down. So if they keep the flag down and it's close, the VAR is going to look at it and say, well, it might be offside, but I can't go with might. Check complete. Goals confirmed. So that helps us in many ways give more goals than take away. Right. I fear that if we do get lines, which we're in talks about doing, because with Apple now coming in, the broadcast camera will be more cameras, etc. So it may happen. But when that happens, I got a feeling that our first year, we're probably going to take away more goals. Right now, our goal for VAR stuff is excellent. In MLS, 99.36 of all goals are valid. They're correctly scored. And we only get involved in 2.7% of all goals. So of all the goals that are scored, we're only involved in 2.7 of them in either giving the goal or taking away the goal. You know what I mean? So that we do a review on, put it that way. So goals in MLS, go ahead and celebrate. We tell the players, go ahead and celebrate. It's very unlikely we're going to take it away. So to us, we like how that works. There's a lot of pressure from the teams though, because everyone wants that definitive line. Like even the World Cup, the guy's butt kept the guy on side. I love that image of the guy's butt keeping him on.
That's why
we don't really want to do that,
Yeah.
So that's the point. This is a good question for fans. Do fans really want lines where, for example, the game Croatia versus I can't remember which one, but it was offside where penalty was taken away for offside. The offside was like 6 to 7 millimeters. That's how much outside it was. So you're talking, not even your fingernails length. So is that what football wants?
Right.
To me, no. That's not what I want personally. But if they tell me to put lines, I got to put lines. So.
Right, but it's interesting because I'm watching this and I'm going, this is not right. You see and it's like the one that I saw, like the bottom of the armpit situation, right? And
really, where is the bottom of your armpit? Really, come on.
Right.
There's enough. There's 6 millimeters this way, 6 millimeters the other way,
Right. And so it's like we're looking at this and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, this is what they wanted. This is what you get, right? Like this is what you asked for. And to me, it's like I'm a baseball fan too. Like Major League Baseball wants to put in automated strike zones. So when the guy misses by 20 inches, 3 feet or whatever, and he's set up down low and he misses high and away and the umpire punches him out. That's what you asked for it. So that's what you get, but interesting.
So it's what they use in Qatar is obviously very good. It's accurate it's completely accurate. No, you can't question it. But it's way too expensive for really other leagues to use right now.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to see it in other leagues for a while. They're going to, maybe the very top leagues can afford it and bring it in because you need all this computer stuff and all these cameras inside the stadiums, etc. So it's not like, let's just buy the software, plug it into our computers, and now we got it. Right. You have to have cameras and all this stuff going on there. So that's it. It's here to stay. Who knows if what happens if FIFA maybe adjusts the offside law? Because the whole part about gaining an advantage, that's subjective.
Right.
Does being offside by 6 millimeters, is that really gaining an advantage? Who knows? Maybe the future of offside would be changed in that way. So.
Yeah, interesting. Well, there's brief follow-ups I want to touch on here. The NWSL project of bringing VAR there, what's that look like? Where are you at in that process?
We're on the final stage. We did all VAR training starts with classroom. So we do 3-hour classes of protocol, understanding what it does and what it can't do, etc. We did that all back in early September and October. And then we go through a bunch of simulator sessions. We did that in October too. We brought our trainees into Atlanta to our centralized location, and we load up plays from all over the world. And that's mostly not to decide whether yes or no review, but it's to learn how to talk and how to manipulate the video, go back, forward, and look and understand how you pick angles to look at things. Believe it or not, one of the best angles that we always want for penalty kicks is the behind the goal camera. It always works because it's exactly opposite of what the referee is seeing. Right. The referee is always behind the play in a penalty kick. And having the other goal camera from behind usually gives us the answer for penalty kicks. Because the referee usually sees this side correctly, right? But he can't see this side, or she can't see this side. And so that camera is good. So we teach our VARs. You have an incident in the penalty kick, ask for that behind the goal camera as your first one to look at. Because it's probably going to give you the answer of yes, it's a penalty kick, or no. And so they've done that. So we have a group. We started a group of about 40 candidates, and we're at like 25 or 26. Now the next step, they've all done 2 simulator sessions, and a few of them did some live games. What we did is the MLS playoffs, we brought that into the central location in 2 signals. We did one that was live, which our VRs were doing live and doing the game, but we had a separate one where people were there practicing on the game live.
Interesting.
So they were working in another thing, just going through it. They couldn't talk to the referee or anything like that. They were just going through the game, but there's no contact with the field. So everybody actually has to do that. So we do that for everybody, that they have some practice games We did that with a couple other games in MLS where they go through the game, no contact to the field. It's just a matter of learning how to go through the process of the game.
Sure.
And now coming up we're going to IMG the first weekend in January, where we do our live on-field training, and we bring the referees in now because the referees need to know what to do, how to go to the monitor, what's going to happen there, what to say, what they're going to lead for, when do we have to wait for the VAR, etc. So we have a bunch of teams come in, and mostly they're players, and they create situations for us. Yeah. Shirt pulling, offsides, penalty kicks. We try to tell them not to. We like red cards, but it's really hard to tell American players to go ahead and nail somebody and give us a serious foul play. But when we did this in Costa Rica, we did it right after the end of kind of COVID was open. We did it for CONCACAF, and they brought in all these teams to play games and say, "Look at this; these are fake games, no money or anything like that. It's just for the VAR." And we had some real red cards in these games. It was fabulous VAR training. Some of these players were like, "I don't care, I haven't played for a year." Whack. And and we had real reviews for serious foul play in fake games that were only being done for VAR.
Oh, that's great.
We can't get the American kids to do that, but we tell them grab a shirt, create a dog show situation like that. But that's going to happen in January. So we do some more simulator there, and at the same time we do. They actually work live talking to the referee. So this is the first one where they actually talk to the referee and go for it. And so once we get past that, when we go into the preseason, every one of the VAR has to do at least, we require for ourselves, at least 2 games where they are going to be the VAR for the preseason. So NWSL is organizing preseason games in their stadiums so that VAR can be involved there. We can test. We also have to test the signal, make sure it's coming in and out. Some of the stuff, the technology goes way over my head of how they get the game from one place to the other with the millisecond, delay. So that they all have to do. So we have that planned for, February, once the teams start getting into preseason. We will be doing VAR in those preseason games with contact with the referee, but it's all just practice. And first game of the season, we'll have VARs on it. So we're looking forward. It'll be the first league in the world to have it.
Wow.
I don't know how much it will get used because it all depends on the referees. And we prefer and we emphasize that we don't want to use VAR. In other words, we say that because we don't want the referees depending on VAR.
Right.
Like, right now our average is 1 review every 3 games. We don't ever want to go more than that. Last year, 2021, we actually had 1 in every 4 games, which is one of our best year for least reviews. And that's because the referees aren't making mistakes. Because even when we add in the ones we missed, etc., it's still coming up that way. And we know some other leagues in the world are having 1 review a game, sometimes 2 or 3 games, which kills the authority of the referee. If the referee's going to have 2 or 3 reviews a game, why bother with them? Just put the VAR in there, you So we really emphasize that, we tell our referees, you're not, obviously we want you to correct the decision, sleep well at night, but we don't think, oh, this is fantastic. You use VAR to change your decision. You should have gotten it right in the first place. And this is what you should do next time to make sure you get it right. And that's our instruction all the time is, this is what you have to do to get it right next time. You need to run quicker, get wider, whatever it might be, because you should have gotten this. That's kind of our thing. VAR helped you. It was the parachute you wanted. And we're happy about that because we sleep good at night too. We don't have a coach going, hey, what's going on? We say, hey, it's the right decision in the end. So our hands are clean, but we still don't want to be doing it if you don't have to.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting for the NWSL to see that. And the technology piece is truly amazing. And you're right. I mean, we weren't recording when we started this, but it took Greg about 25 minutes to unmute his microphone. So the technology piece.
We only have a few meetings a week.
I had to get my one mean dig in.
Yeah.
For our episode. No. Anyway, so 2 quick things. The centralized location, has that gone as you had hoped?
Not at the beginning, it did. At the beginning, we had some struggles. We actually 3 days before I think it was a weekend in March, full weekend of MLS games, we had to take all our VARs except one that were going to go to Atlanta, to our second location, and reroute them to all the stadiums.
Wow.
That's 3 days because there was an AT&T signal issue, internet issue coming in that wasn't coming in fast enough. So in other words, it could only run 1 game from there. And we found this out basically on a Thursday. And so all the plane tickets, everything got changed. So there was issues with that at the beginning. We did not miss any games. Every single game had VAR. So that's positive. We struggled with the audio connection. The video usually was coming in good. The audio was an issue until they had, it's again over my head, some of the technology part of it. They had to rework some things of how they're bringing the audio in. So we actually had to use the backup system several times.
Interesting.
And so that got cleaned up by May. There was just, it was a little bit that we rushed it in getting there. The approval for Atlanta wasn't given till late. And so we were behind on construction, etc., on getting there. So that was a little bit of an issue. But so at the beginning, it was a struggle. But I tell you what, one of the good things about it really helped with scheduling once we got it going. Because a guy could come in Friday, do a game Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Right.
So we were able to use our best VARs for more games. And the guys liked it too. They can come in and work, 3 games on a weekend, and for them it's more money, but it's also less travel then because they're not going to 3 different locations and whatnot. And Atlanta's a big airport, so you can get out on time, get out pretty easily for almost anywhere in the country. So people really liked it. We had problems with our hotel at first too. They never hired enough people after COVID, so we had to move to a different hotel. So it's all these things that go behind the scenes that luckily most of you don't notice because it's getting cleaned up by the time. We had two of the monitors die this year for the first time, and one was really embarrassing because it was a terrible PK given by the referee. It was clear simulation. He went to the monitor was dead, and so he decided to stay with the decision. And so we have a policy now that if the monitor is dead, you go with what the VAR tells you, because the VAR is not going to be telling you to go to the monitor for nothing.
Right.
So there is times when the VAR recommends incorrectly, like he too low or too high of intervention, but that's a rarity. So we have a kind of policy in place. If technology fails, we make it what we call a factual review. In other words, you go a VAR only review, sort of like the rest of the world does with offside, where they just say, hey, beep, offside. So that's a learning point that we had. Luckily it didn't affect the game too much. It was already 2-0, made it 3-0, but we could change things completely. So a little embarrassing, and then things like that. I have to do it on Inside Video Review. I comment on it, just explain to people this is what happened, and you get people that complain about it, but technology is technology. It breaks down. You think I show up in Atlanta and at 7:00 everything's working perfectly. Kickoffs are 7:38, and all of a sudden, boom, we're not getting a signal from Salt Lake. Well, what's going on? What happened to it? Well, we can't hear the referees anymore. It's like boom. So that happens every now and then. But Hawkeye, our supplier, does a pretty good job of fixing it. And really, by the end of the season, we were smoothly going out of Atlanta with no issues.
This is something that I think you guys have already experimented with. Professional football has gone down this road. NFL, I should say. Major League Baseball brought this in, and that is announcing replay decisions on the PA by the official. Is that something that we will see in the near future in the MLS?
Well, we did test it. We tested it at several venues of referee camps. We did it in Minnesota, where we created an effect, and the referee would go out and say, "Decision on the field is no goal, offside by number 15." That type of thing. We tested it. We didn't get approval from FIFA to do it, so it got kind of put on the back burner because it was another piece of technology to put on the referee. And, they already got the flags on their arm. They got the Vocero on it. And now we're going to throw a microphone on them too. So it was, the technology wasn't quite there to kind of work at the same microphones of Vocero and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So it kind of got dropped. And also it kind of got dropped because people understood VAR better. Sure. At first it was more of a demand for it because people didn't quite know, why is he taking away the goal? And people don't know the reason that we go to the monitor every time is because of broadcast screwing up in New England. We had a goal scored in New England. Robert Sabiga was the referee. It was a long ball. A guy came back and flicked it to another guy who goes in and scores a good goal. VAR sees the guy who flicked it had come from an offside position back to flick the ball. Clearly offside. AR had missed it. The VAR did recommend a review for no goal offside. The review goes beep like this. They put the ball down and played. The fans were still celebrating. The broadcast was showing the replays of the goal, and it was 1-0 for about 10 minutes when it was 0-0. And broadcast got mad at us. Says, well, we didn't know. We didn't know. And what the referee did all those things. So after that, we said, let's just go to the monitor for the benefit of the fans and the broadcast. So when we go with her for offside, it's really almost ceremonial. It's just to slow the process down because we were actually going it too fast. We were doing it too quickly that broadcast and the fans weren't realizing it. So the reason that we go on those fast reviews is to actually show the fans, look at the referee, which American fans are used to, right? We're used to seeing a referee go to a monitor and make a decision and come back, right? So for our culture of sport, we expect the referee to go and make a decision at a monitor. And so it's very accepted for us to see the referee go there. It takes 45 seconds longer to do it. We know that. To go to the monitor, look at it, come back with a decision. So that's why we do it. Maybe not with automated stuff or lines at some point we'll go away from that. But that's probably the number one reason why we go to the monitor for every single review, regardless of what it is. Even encroachment by the goalkeeper on a penalty kick, which is just completely factual because all you're going to look at is a screen that shows you the guy's foot across the line. So we do that, but it's for the broadcast and for the fans in the stadium.
Yeah. So to kind of close out the VAR conversation, and then we'll get to our fan questions here. Where we're at with VAR in the MLS, do you think we're on the right track? Are you happy with where things are going? What's your overall analysis of this?
Well, we are pretty happy. We do not get the complaints for VAR that you get around the world. Right. I think one of the reasons is we're pretty transparent with it. Like Inside Video Review, we also, if you go to proreferees.com, you will see a thing called Definitive Angle where we put our opinion on every single review. Because sometimes I don't cover everything inside Video Review because it might be boring or just there's nothing interesting about it, So, and if we have 5 reviews, it'd be a 15-minute segment. I mean, geez, I got a life. I'm not gonna do 15 minutes, So we always put them there, and I think that helps. And we'll admit sometimes, the VAR didn't get it right, But then we also say it would have been wrong before VAR too. It just happened to be it stayed wrong because VAR didn't fix it, So overall, I think we have really positive marks. We're happy with it. We like that we keep a high line of intervention. There are things that people will see and say, "Oh, that's a penalty kick." They're looking, but if the referee gave it, it might be a penalty kick, but it's really not clearly wrong. Like especially upper body fouls. Upper body fouls are so subjective because soccer is a contact sport, especially with the upper body. And so VARs are very, very rarely ever going to touch anything with the upper body because, you guys got his arm here, they got their arm there, and they're both kind of holding each other. Stay out of it. We don't get involved with that because it's just too subjective. Who is holding who more than the other guy? Like maybe one guy got a little bit more than the other, but people are going to look at it. Come on. And so what we want to do is we want people to say, look at, wow, that's a penalty kick. You got to give it, or that's a red card. Come on. And talk about that. Red cards were, since we started in 2017, the red card checks and review have gone straight downhill. Mm-hmm. To me, I'm convinced player behavior change. Yeah. Because they know they can't get away with it. At the World Cup, no reviews for red cards, right? Well, the dog so, but I'm talking about serious foul play. But, there's no, and violent conduct, none, and that's because of VAR, because they can't get away with it anymore. Yeah. And this last year, we had our best success rate with red cards. We only missed 2 or I think 3 red cards that we think there should have been that weren't given, but they were dogso. They weren't even, that's kind of subjective. Then is the defender back far enough, etc. But red cards, serious foul play, we got them. Violent conduct, we got them. And so players stopped doing them. So when you look at our data for checks in the game for red card incidents in 2017, it's way up here. 2018 dropped a little bit. 2019 dropped, 2020 dropped, 2022 it's down, it's way down. So we very, very few red card incidents to check anymore. Yeah. And that's player behavior because of VAR. So we have a high line of intervention, and we think it's worked for us. And really, right now, VAR is going to be all about penalty kicks. I think in the future, penalty kicks, of course, offside for goals, but VAR in the future is all about the penalty kicks or not penalty kicks. And so that's why handball, no handball, trip or no trip, it's very subjective decisions. And so that's where you got to be really careful about going down the line of like any contact is going to be a penalty kick. The VAR is going to review, because then really guys are just going to get knocked over and go down, and think, oh, I'll give you a penalty kick. So I think keeping a high line has really helped us. And yeah, sometimes people go, oh, come on, that's a penalty kick. We're going, really? Is it a penalty kick? And it probably, it could be. But we don't want to be in the could be business. We want to be in the business of, yeah, you know what? That's the clear penalty. You have to give it. Yeah. It's unfair. It's unjust. So that's where we want to be, and that's where we're going to be. The teams accept it. I think one of the things you got to really establish is you have to establish a line for all the games so that they understand that in their games, this is where the line's going to be. Right. Because you don't want to have one game where it's up here and somewhere else. So we have work with our VARs to try to stay on the same line with everybody else. And that's why we put all the reviews for them to vote on, because we want them all agreeing that, yeah, this is a good one. This is not a good one. This was okay. So we know where they are. And sometimes every now and then we've had to adjust them, say, look, if you see this happen in your next game, we want it reviewed because we think this is a penalty kick or red card or whatever it is. So I think we're happy. I think we have good reputation around the world for it.
Yeah.
That they look at us and say, they're doing it right. We don't get a lot of complaints. I mean, we do get complaints. I mean, some you'll never hear about because there are emails from stuff like that type of thing behind the scenes. But overall, I think they're pretty happy with it. The one thing I would want to improve for next year, our length of our reviews was a little bit too long for my liking. I want to break the 2-minute barrier where our average reviews are less than 2 minutes. If we took away going to the monitor for everyone, we'd probably be there. But I want to be able to do it under 2 minutes and still go to the monitor every time. So that's kind of our goal for this coming year.
Good. Cool. Well, let's go to a couple these fan questions. So
I'm supposing that these are your fans, of course.
Yeah. Which is hard to narrow it down because there's thousands.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What's your favorite stadium that you've worked in?
Are we talking? Well, I tell you what, the funnest one, the most intense one, is Saprissa Stadium in Costa Rica. If you ever get a chance to be in Costa Rica, it's in San Jose, and see Saprissa play in their stadium. It's a fabulous stadium. It's freaky as hell. The referee locker room is underneath the behind the goal section, and it's built where it goes up and down. So there's no doors on the locker room for the referee, just curtains, because it actually goes up or down 5 or 6 inches. And the fans are up there jumping, and you look up and the ceiling is going up and down like this above you. And by the way, the visiting locker room is underneath there too. But it's the intensity of the crowd, and the crowd's right there. I mean, that's what I love about it. I don't like the stadiums where they have the track. The fans are too far away. It's just the intensity is right there. And Saprissa Stadium is just, if you ever get a chance to go to Costa Rica to vacation, see if you can get a game in at Saprissa. It's called the Purple Dragon. It's just a fun place. In the U.S., I would say Austin's a great atmosphere. Portland's a great atmosphere. LAFC, great atmosphere. There's so many great atmospheres in now in MLS. When I first started with MLS, there was no atmosphere anywhere.
Yeah.
Anybody used to go to Kansas City games when they were in Arrowhead.
Yeah, I remember being at the Wizards in Arrowhead.
I probably met you there because there probably been 10 other people with you there. They probably waved to you. But we used to send referees to Arrowhead for their very first game, and the coach at the time caught on and complained, said, "Hey, just because we have no fans here, you can't be sending us all the new referees." Because we said, where's the least pressure? Kansas City. But now go to Kansas City, crazy. It's completely different. Wonderful place to go to. Toronto was great. I mean, I was there for the very first game in Toronto, where if you know some MLS history, they gave them all cushions to sit on as their opening. They were rubber things like this. They all came on the field.
I'm sure
great frisbees. And it's actually, if you ever get a chance to look on a video for it, it's basically looks like a snowstorm of frisbees coming on there. I actually have one in my basement. I kept one for a memento.
That's amazing.
No MLS now. I mean, tell you what, you have friends that come from overseas, there's so many good stadiums now for a great atmosphere. And that's what's great about MLS now. To me, it sends chills. Seeing some of these stadiums when, if you were in MLS in 96, 97, 98, when some places were struggling, and you could count how many fans were there. Atmosphere was poor.
Yeah.
To see it have grown to what it is today, to me, it's absolutely. I mean, it sends chills. I mean, I was at the final LAFC. To see that, and not just the game itself, but to see the growth and that the fans are having such a good time, that it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, that's amazing. You've already answered this a little bit, but another question that came in was, will MLS Pro consider the use of semi-automated offside technology?
Yeah, we're considering it. I mean, I think it would happen if we get goal line cameras. So we have to see what Apple broadcasts, because remember now Apple's taken over, so they'll be doing all the broadcasting. So we haven't really seen yet their camera plans, etc. It is a possibility. Obviously we have. It's just a matter of having the right cameras, and then we can implement it. So it's a good chance it would happen. I don't think it'll happen for 2023. I think it'll be more for 2024.
Sure.
That's where I mean, it's not, I would say almost impossible it happens in 2023, just because what it would take to get the software and get everything lined up is probably not going to happen, but it will happen. I'd say 2024 is probably going to happen.
Sure. And we'll conclude with this last question. This comes from a Jay Freeman here out of Kansas City.
Are we fake? I think I know who that is.
I think you might. So he wants to know, what's your favorite type of escape room and or your favorite city to attempt an escape room?
We failed too many of them. We for some reason, talking about doing things that you forget the games. Well, a lot of the referees, we like to do escape rooms. So we're like at a referee camp, and we have like Friday night off or Saturday night off. Some guy will figure there's an escape room, down here. Let's go down there and we'll split up rooms. The only thing I said, there's a few people I don't want to ever be in an escape room with anymore. Jay Freeman is not one of them, but there's one MD. I'll give some initials. MD. I don't want to be in him because it makes you get too stressed out by him. But the guys are good. It's a good time to get locked into a room and try to figure out how to get out. We've done that a couple of times in some places. I always like to go, and have that fun. And you know what? Even though I'm technically a manager of the referees and what like that, there's a personal connection. I think. I mean, when you're a referee, you go through some struggles and some bad times. There are games where things don't go well. And even if you make the right decision, it just may not be accepted. So you walk out the field with people yelling at you, and you're not really feeling that good about yourself. I tell you what, if you don't have a support system of friends and family, you're not going to make it. I'll say it. My wife has been fabulous, coming over Rotten Games. I said, I'm pretty sure I missed this or that. And, you're still welcome here. So, it's and she's a great assessor in her own right. I never refereed a game, right? Never watched soccer until she married me. So she goes, "What is this?" Now she was sitting there screaming her head up with Argentina winning. But that type of stuff. If you don't have that, you're really not going to make it. And that might be a mentor, it might be a friend that understands. And some don't even have to know anything about soccer. They just have to know that, hey, you had a bad day and you got abused, and you got to get back up and go again. So it's part of referee that we have some rough struggles, but when you go through the battle with people, you end up really loving them and caring about what they do.
Greg, this has been a ton of fun. I knew it would be. I will give you the chance to kind of have the last word, although that was really, really good. But I'll give you a chance to have the last word. If there's anything that you feel like I won't be able to say this to the Check, if I don't say this to the Check Complete podcast, I won't be able to sleep tonight. What do you think? If there's anything that's...
Well, I did the one thing. I thank my wife.
Yeah, you did that right.
You got to always make sure you do that.
Yeah.
I know that before you kind of mentioned what I would tell a younger me about refereeing. One, I would say is that, I thought I was pretty good when I was young. I was pretty cocky. I thought all the referees screwed up. I was a terrible player in regard to that. I would yell at referees, and finally one player says, you stop yelling so much. Why don't you go be a referee, kind of thing, and I realized, I'm sitting there complaining all the time. Why I go out there and do it? And I thought I was better than I was. And it took a couple older referees and older assessors to kind of tell me some things that I didn't want to hear. And I kind of, you know what you're talking about. You're no referee. You haven't been around. And I actually have the assessment that says, if you want a career in professional refereeing, you have to do this. And I tell you what, if you could find an assessor that'll be honest with you, you got to find them, because there's too many assessors who go, "Yay, you did well," blah blah blah, but they're afraid to tell you what it was. And this was Baldwin. He passed away many years ago, but he was the first one that failed me. And it was a time when you had to get so many passing assessments to get, to the next level. And I had to go out and get 2 more assessments because of him. So I was really pissed off at it, but I kept that assessment. I have it down in my basement there, that he basically said, the line was, and I still remember it, if you want a career in professional refereeing, you must do this. And one of the things was like, move this way, you got to appear this way, you can't look like this, and most of it was not decision making. It was almost all with what you looked like and how you acted in the game. Yeah. So decision making, you can learn at clinics and whatnot, what a handball is, what it isn't, and what a foul is, what it isn't, offside, what is it. But the way you act and how you look on the field is something you have to learn. Look at the top referee. Look at Ishmael. Does he look professional when he's on the field? Does he look in control? You look at those guys. That's what you got to learn to do. And sometimes that means be an actor. Sometimes you may be inside boiling, but you have to be. And I still remember one player from Rochester after activity says, I got in there, started yelling, I get away, get back. And the guy looks and says, hey, you're the referee. You need to be the calmest guy on the field. Player said to me, I said, and that I remember that because it was right. You need to be the calmest one, the most control person on the field, whether all hell's breaking loose. Right. So really, if I had gone back to a younger person, it says you could have done better in what you looked like and acted like on the field when you first started out, and you probably would have gotten to where you wanted to faster. So my advice would be like, control the things you control, how you look, how you act, off the field, on the field. We have some very good referees that just screw around off the field, and we have to let them go because you're representing people, and you got to remember that part. And so that whole thing, when you get to the top level, it's the full package. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not just, oh, wow, he makes good decision, good foul recognition, blah, blah, blah. You can have all that. But if you're not doing the right things off the field, it doesn't matter. You're not going to make it. So that's my closing statement there. I feel like I would love to see something from Peter Drury. Peter Drury, the English commentator that does these poetic things. Yes. I wish I could do something like that, Well, the kid from Rosario with Barkey carrying all the dreams of all the referees on his shoulders as he goes on the pitch with his flag, yellow and red, for all the difficulties he has. Something like that. Something nice and poetic. He's carrying the dreams of a nation.
That's right.
On the field.
The whole nation.
Yeah. So
Greg, this has been way too much fun. We so appreciate your time. Thank you. So.
Yeah. This has been episode 21 of the Check Complete podcast. Logan Clark, thanks for your time, my friend.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Wonderful sitting next to you. Thanks for keeping your hands to yourself. We also want to say thank you to Christina Kramer for her segment about error correction recovery. And then, of course, the one and only Greg Barkey for a wonderful interview with him. We appreciate his time. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to the video. Please, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Follow us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at check_complete, on the Facebooks, Check Complete Podcast. We would love to hear any ideas you have for future segments or full-on episodes. Email us at info@checkcompletepodcast.com or slide into our DMs on one of those social media channels. If you, for whatever reason, have something negative to say about what we've done here, we invite you to write it on the back of the yellow card used by Simon Marciniak to book Marcus Thuram for a simulation in the World Cup final. So if you could just write it on the back of that, send it to us, that'd be great. This has been great.
It has.
Thank you so much, Logan. We're excited, like I said, to see you continue to do your thing.
I'm excited to see where it takes me.
Yes. Well, thanks for listening/watching, whatever you're doing, of the Check Complete podcast. We appreciate you. We will also be, just a brief announcement, we will also be taking 3 of the 4 members of our team to the referee experience at the United Soccer Coaches Convention. The referee experience will be the 13th and the 14th of January in Philadelphia. So we'll be there for that. There's still plenty of time to register. It's $99. So go to the United Soccer Coaches Convention website and click on the referees portion to register for the event. $99. It's a who's who of people that'll be there that are honored to be there with me. Okay, maybe I'm honored to be there with them. So very much so an exciting group lineup of speakers that we're anxious to connect with. And if you will be there, please reach out. We would love to meet some of you that are giving up your time to listen to us ramble and talk about things we love. So if you're watching this before Christmas, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday season. Thanks for engaging with the Check Complete podcast.